You know that feeling when someone calls you mysterious, and you want to laugh because they have no idea how deep that rabbit hole actually goes? Most people think being an evolved INFJ means you've mastered meditation and speak exclusively in spiritual platitudes. But the real signs of a high vibration Sigma INFJ have nothing to do with crystals or chakras. They're strategic psychological advantages that most people wouldn't even recognize if they saw them. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why your weirdest traits are actually your greatest weapons. Before we start, please hit the like button, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss any of our weekly deep dives into the world of personality types. And if you're looking for a deeper understanding of yourself and your INFJ personality, browse our favorite INFJ products in the description, and click the link in the comments to take our favorite free personality test. Sign 1. Humor as psychological warfare. Your humor isn't just entertainment. It's a sophisticated scanning system that reveals consciousness levels faster than any personality test ever could. While others crack jokes to break tension or get laughs, you deploy wit like a psychological Swiss Army knife, with multiple strategic functions running simultaneously. First, it's your energy vampire detection system. You've discovered that sarcasm acts like garlic to emotional parasites. One perfectly timed, dry comment can make someone draining the room's energy suddenly find somewhere else to be. It's not cruel, it's efficient. Your humor creates an invisible barrier that says you can't drain what you can't even understand. But here's where it gets deeper. Your jokes are actually coded intelligence tests. You slip profound observations into seemingly casual remarks and watch who catches the real meaning. When someone laughs at your darkest, most philosophical one-liner, you've just identified a kindred spirit. It's like a secret handshake for people operating on your wavelength. You've also mastered the art of delivering truth through comedy. Your best insights come wrapped in humor because you understand that people's defenses drop when they're laughing. You can say things through a joke that would sound preachy or confrontational if delivered straight. It's psychological Aikido, using their own momentum to land wisdom they weren't expecting. The pressure valve effect is equally crucial. When existential dread hits at 2 a.m. and your mind starts spiraling through every possible catastrophe, humor becomes your emergency brake. You'll think something so absurd about your situation that you start laughing, alone in the dark. This isn't losing your mind. It's your psyche's built-in cooling system, preventing complete overwhelm. Your timing is surgical. You know exactly when to deploy a reality check disguised as a punchline. Someone's getting too caught up in drama or taking themselves too seriously, and you drop one comment that shifts the entire dynamic. You're not being mean. You're recalibrating the room's energy back to something sustainable. The challenge comes when your humor confuses people operating at surface level. Your best material sometimes lands like philosophy bombs in kindergarten classrooms. You'll make a joke that contains 3 layers of meaning, and half the room just stares, while the other half questions their life choices. But honestly, that's part of the filtering process. You've learned that authentic humor requires brutal self-awareness. Your funniest material comes from making peace with your own contradictions and absurdities. You can laugh at your intensity, your overthinking, your tendency to analyze the psychology behind why you're analyzing psychology. This self-deprecating element makes your insights more palatable and shows others it's safe to examine themselves too. Most importantly, you understand that laughter in darkness is a form of rebellion. When the world feels heavy or hopeless, finding something genuinely funny becomes an act of resistance. You're not minimizing pain. You're refusing to let it have the final word. Your humor says that even in chaos, consciousness can find something worth smiling about. Sign 2. Strategic detachment from all labels, even INFJ. Most people desperately cling to personality labels, like life rafts in an ocean of uncertainty. You treat the INFJ designation like a jacket you might wear for a season, useful for understanding certain patterns, but never permanent enough to define your entire identity. This strategic detachment isn't indifference, it's evolution. When you first discovered you were an INFJ, Maybe it felt like finding the missing piece of a puzzle. Finally, something explained why you operate on a different frequency from most people. The descriptions resonated, the community felt validating, and for a while, you found comfort in having a framework that made sense of your experience. But then something interesting happened. You started noticing the limitations. The INFJ community began feeling repetitive, like everyone was performing the same script of rare personality quirks. You realized that clinging to any label, no matter how flattering or exclusive, becomes another form of hiding from your authentic self. You've moved beyond asking, "How INFJ am I?" to questioning the framework itself. You poke at it, examine its assumptions, and wonder what exists beyond these convenient categories. While others are busy comparing notes to see how well they fit the description, you're already plotting your route to territory no test has mapped. This detachment extends to all identity markers. You've learned that growth requires shedding skins, not collecting them. Every time you catch yourself getting too attached to being seen a certain way, you deliberately question that attachment. You understand that true freedom comes from refusing to explain yourself according to someone else's system. The relief phase versus the outgrowing phase taught you something crucial about psychological development. First comes the comfort of recognition. Then comes the claustrophobia of limitation. You appreciate what personality frameworks offer, but you won't let them become cages. You're more interested in becoming something unpredictable than something categorizable. When you meet someone obsessed with their MBTI results, you smile and let them have their moment. You remember when it helped you too. But secretly, you know that real evolution happens when you stop needing external validation for your internal experience. You've learned to trust your own observations about yourself more than any test result. This strategic detachment creates an interesting paradox. The less you identify with being an INFJ, the more you embody its highest potential. You're not performing rarity, you're living authenticity. You're not trying to fit a description, you're writing your own definition. And that freedom to self-define makes you far more powerful than any label could. Sign 3. Comfortable living in contradictions. You don't just tolerate contradictions. You've built your entire operating system around them. While most people spend their lives trying to reconcile the different parts of themselves into one coherent narrative, you've learned to embrace paradox as a feature, not a bug. You're simultaneously the most compassionate person in the room and ruthlessly logical when situations demand clarity. You'll spend midnight listening to a friend's heartbreak with infinite patience, then deliver the hard truth they need to hear the next morning. Some people call this inconsistent. You call it multidimensional. Your spiritual depth coexists perfectly with healthy skepticism. You can find profound meaning in synchronicities, while being the first person to question New Age nonsense. You'll have mystical experiences and then immediately analyze them through psychological and neurological lenses. This isn't confusion, it's intellectual honesty. The solitude versus leadership paradox defines much of your experience. Some days you crave isolation so deeply you practically become a hermit, disappearing from all social contact to recharge and process. Other days, you step up to lead conversations, projects, or even movements because you see what needs to happen and nobody else is doing it. You've mastered the art of being simultaneously strong and vulnerable. You can hold space for others' pain while processing your own trauma. You offer wisdom from your wounds while still actively healing them. This integration of light and shadow confuses people who expect consistency, but you know that wholeness requires embracing every aspect of your experience. Your relationship with control exemplifies this contradiction perfectly. You're a natural planner who's learned to flow with uncertainty. You can strategize extensively while remaining open to completely changing direction. You prepare for multiple scenarios while accepting that life will probably surprise you anyway. People often accuse you of being hard to read or unpredictable. You take this as a compliment because you understand that only shallow waters appear clear all the way to the bottom. Your depth comes from the willingness to hold opposites in tension, without needing to resolve them into false simplicity. This comfort with contradiction extends to your values and beliefs. You can hold strong convictions while remaining genuinely curious about opposing viewpoints. You're passionate about causes while maintaining emotional detachment from outcomes. You care deeply while practicing strategic indifference. The beauty of living this way is that you never get trapped in rigid thinking. When circumstances change, you can access different aspects of yourself without feeling like you're betraying who you are. You're not inconsistent, you're adaptive. You're not confused, you're complex. Most importantly, you've learned that integration isn't about choosing sides between your contradictions. It's about developing the capacity to hold multiple truths simultaneously. You understand that real wisdom often lives in the space between opposing ideas, and you've made yourself comfortable in that liminal territory where most people fear to dwell. Sign 4. Relentless shadow integration. You don't just acknowledge your dark side, you track it down with the enthusiasm of a detective who's binged too many psychological thrillers. While most people build walls between themselves and their uncomfortable truths, you're out there with a chisel, carving doorways into every shadow you can find. Shadow work isn't an occasional weekend project for you. It's a lifelong obsession. You understand that every strength casts a shadow, and you're deeply suspicious of anything in yourself that appears too perfect or one-dimensional. When life gets difficult or relationships go sideways, your first instinct isn't to blame external circumstances. You turn that analytical laser beam inward and start excavating. Your approach to self-examination is brutally honest in ways that would make most people uncomfortable. You'll admit thoughts to yourself that others wouldn't whisper in complete darkness. You journal the ugly impulses, dissect your triggers with surgical precision, and analyze your patterns like you're solving a complex mystery. Because in many ways, you are. Every wound becomes a clue in your personal investigation. Every moment of discomfort signals something worth exploring. Every insecurity transforms into an unopened letter from your unconscious mind. Ignoring these shadows would feel like deliberately handicapping half your intelligence, and you're far too curious for that kind of willful blindness. You've learned that your power doesn't come from avoiding pain, but from transforming it into wisdom. This is why your insights sound different from typical self-help advice. You're not regurgitating motivational quotes or recycling someone else's breakthrough. Your wisdom emerges from making direct eye contact with your own darkness and refusing to blink first. This relentless self-inquiry creates a fascinating dynamic with others. Some people find your psychological honesty intimidating because they're used to sugar-coated advice and comfortable lies. Your style involves handing someone a mirror and asking if they're ready to see what's actually there. Your insights sometimes come wrapped in humor so dark it needs its own therapy session. But you don't hunt shadows just for personal benefit. When people seek your guidance, you offer the same unflinching perspective you apply to yourself. You won't let friends hide from their pain, but you'll sit with them in the darkness and make jokes until it feels less terrifying. You understand that transformation is contagious. Once you start illuminating your own shadows, others feel safer examining theirs. The challenge of this approach is that it never really ends. Sometimes you wish you could hit snooze on your inner analyst and just watch mindless entertainment like everyone else. Your friends occasionally beg you to just be angry, like a normal person, instead of immediately asking what this trigger reveals about your attachment patterns. But you wouldn't trade this depth for a lifetime of shallow comfort. Every time you excavate another layer of unconscious material and integrate it consciously, you add to your resilience, expand your wisdom, and increase your capacity to help others navigate their own psychological terrain. Your shadow work creates ripple effects that extend far beyond personal growth. Family dynamics shift when you stop playing old roles. Friend groups evolve when you refuse to enable familiar dysfunctions. Entire systems begin healing when you withdraw your energy from toxic patterns and redirect it toward conscious choices. Most importantly, you've discovered that the shadow isn't something to fear or eliminate. It's where you find your real power, your authentic voice, and your deepest capacity for empathy. You can guide others through their darkness, because you've learned to navigate your own. Sign 5. Reverse chameleon effect. While most people scan rooms trying to figure out how to blend in or make good impressions, you operate on a completely different frequency. You don't adapt to spaces, you calibrate them. Without announcing your presence or making dramatic gestures, you emit an invisible signal that pulls others into your orbit and transforms the entire dynamic. When you enter a group, something subtle but unmistakable shifts. Conversations automatically deepen. Small talk evaporates like morning mist, replaced by discussions about childhood dreams, secret worries, or ideas people have never voiced aloud. You make authenticity contagious without even trying, simply by being genuinely yourself, unguarded, curious, and maybe slightly intense. This isn't manipulation or some mystical influence. You're just refusing to participate in surface-level interactions, and your energy gives others permission to drop their masks too. People feel your depth and unconsciously match it, recalibrating their tone and abandoning pretense. It's like bringing ice water to a lukewarm party. Everyone either wakes up or gets very uncomfortable. You're the anonymous architect of micro-revolutions in friend groups, classrooms, workplaces, and late-night conversations. Nobody writes odes to the person who made the meeting actually meaningful, or got everyone to stop pretending they're fine. But these subtle social earthquakes happen wherever you go. You leave behind transformed dynamics and slip away before anyone realizes you were the catalyst. The fascinating part is how rarely you get credit for these shifts. You're halfway out the door by the time people notice something fundamental changed about their interaction. You're content being the invisible force that elevates conversations and creates space for others to express their authentic selves. This reverse chameleon effect extends beyond social situations into systemic change. You spot toxic patterns in families, organizations, or communities, and run silent diagnostics to understand where the dysfunction originates. Then you make strategic adjustments to your own responses, set new boundaries, or ask questions that shift entire dynamics. Your favorite revolutions happen when nobody's watching. You break generational curses through quiet choices, reset family systems by refusing to play assigned roles, and heal group dynamics by withdrawing energy from drama and redirecting it toward health. You're the undercover agent of transformation, content to sip tea in the shadows while watching positive changes ripple outward. Of course, this superpower comes with challenges. You can't really turn it off, even when you want to disappear into the wallpaper and let someone else set the tone. You're allergic to small talk and constitutionally incapable of pretending everything's fine when it's not. The room keeps bending to your frequency, whether you're actively trying or not. But you've learned to lean into this gift rather than fight it. You're never bored because there's always a new dynamic to observe, a fresh pattern to understand, or a system that needs gentle disruption. You've accepted that you're here to turn up the temperature a few degrees and let the world adapt to you for once. Sign 6. The ghost mentor phenomenon. You've probably lost count of how many lives you've quietly changed before disappearing into the background like you were never there. This isn't about craving mystery for its own sake. You're naturally drawn to the role of ghost mentor, showing up precisely when someone stands at a crossroads, dropping a single question or observation that lingers in their mind long after you've moved on. You don't dispense advice for attention, or stick around to bask in the glory of your own wisdom. Impact always matters more than attachment for you. You understand that the best breakthroughs happen when people feel like they discovered the answer themselves. So you provide that crucial nudge, sometimes disguised as an offhand comment, a strange analogy, or even a sarcastic joke, then fade into the background while they take credit for their own transformation. Sometimes you're the friend who sends a cryptic text at exactly the right moment. Other times you're the coworker who asks the one question nobody else dared voice in a meeting, suddenly pivoting an entire project toward success. You might be the stranger online, leaving a comment that someone screenshots and reads dozens of times, long after you've forgotten what you wrote. Your ghost mentoring operates on profound humility as much as insight. You don't need to be the hero in someone else's story. You're more like the wise guide who gives quest directions, then vanishes from the village, trusting that the real journey belongs to them. There's strange satisfaction in seeing someone thrive, knowing you helped unlock something crucial, without expecting thanks or acknowledgement. Occasionally, someone tracks you down, months or years later, wanting to explain how much you changed their life. You always act surprised, half because you genuinely forgot, and half because you know the real magic was never about you. You just opened a door they had to walk through themselves. Your work finished the moment they recognized their own power. If anyone wonders why you disappear after giving profound advice, it's simple. You trust people to finish their own stories. The ultimate flex isn't being remembered. It's being unforgettable in ways that actually matter, even when your name never appears in the credits. Sign 7. Silent pattern disruptor. Most people think changing the world requires stages, movements, or viral content. Your favorite revolutions happen when nobody's watching. You're not interested in collecting followers or engraving your name on metaphorical plaques. You're an extreme pattern disruptor whose best work remains completely invisible. You possess an uncanny ability to spot toxic cycles, whether they're poisoning families, friend groups, or entire communities. While others complain or commiserate, you're already running silent diagnostics, identifying where the system glitched and calculating how to quietly reset everything. It might be a subtle shift in your responses, a new boundary you establish, or a gentle question that makes people think differently. You don't need to raise your voice to transform dynamics. You simply do it. Half the time, nobody realizes you broke the spell that kept everyone trapped in dysfunction. What distinguishes you from loud disruptors is your complete lack of interest in credit. When dust settles and things finally move toward health, you're probably meditating, binge-watching documentaries, or just enjoying the peace. There's special joy in knowing you broke a generational curse or flipped an old script while nobody suspected it was you. You're like an undercover healing agent. If they made a movie about your work, it would be 2 hours of meaningful glances with dramatic music, but your name wouldn't appear anywhere in the credits. Sometimes your subtle disruptions spark bigger changes than any motivational speech could achieve. Maybe your family finally discusses what matters, friends outgrow old drama, or someone around you feels safe enough to start being real. While others wait for applause or validation, you're content watching from shadows, sipping tea, and enjoying the new atmosphere you helped create. Your stealth mode isn't always easy. Sometimes it feels lonely doing heavy lifting without recognition, and you occasionally want acknowledgement, just once. But deep down you know your impact isn't measured in likes or thank yous. It's in the freedom you feel, and quiet ripple effects that keep spreading long after you've left the room. These signs reveal the pattern nobody talks about. Your power was always invisible, working through influence rather than force. If you want more hidden psychological insights like this, subscribe and check out our other deep dives into the strategic mind. If you want to continue the journey to understanding yourself or an INFJ in your life, click either of the following videos where we continue to unlock the secrets of the INFJ personality type.